2 hours. So it's going to be very fun. Um, so basically, we have an EC2 machine. All right. So this is where we're going to deploy. This is what we want to put our Docker image onto, right? And then we're going to boot up our Docker container and like have something running. Now, normally we push that, if you think about it, what we've done in the past is we push that Docker image to Docker Hub, right? That way people can access it. But what we're going to do instead is this time is push it to ECR, which is the equivalent. It's like just like Docker Hub. The difference is it's part of the Amazon ecosystem. And because of that, we can like set permissions and also like even you can set kind of like these like permissions that allow what we want to do is allow this EC2 to access the ECR. And if we want, we can basically only allow like Amazon users and Amazon users or resources that we authenticate to access our repository. Okay, so this is a way that allows us to give permission to Amazon users or Amazon resources to access our repository. Later on, like if you want to get fancier, you can do fancier stuff with, by storing our image inside of Amazon. Like for instance, you could have this image automatically boot up into a container and like have some event trigger it and automatically boot it up. So you can get fancier and fancier, but for right now, the feature that we're taking advantage of is just that we can kind of like allow access by using this ECR. We can like more finely grained specify who we're going to give access to. So the main person that we want to give access to, again, is like our EC2 instance. And to do that, it's kind of like a little roundabout the way Amazon makes you do it. What you do is you create a role, and you can think of this is like an IAM role, right? Which that just stands for like identity and access management. But you can think of it as like a key card. You can almost think of it as a user, but it's not exactly a user. It's more to me like a key card, because what you do is you have a key card and you say, hey, this key card, I'm going to endow it with certain responsibilities, or certain permissions, which is the ability to access ECR. And then I'm going to attach or like kind of like give that key card to my EC2 instance. So by giving the key card to the EC2 instance, we're saying, hey, now that you're holding this thing, you get to access the ECR, right? So kind of the steps are, you create a role. The role is kind of like this key card. You give permissions to the role that kind of say like, whoever's holding this role or is like tagged with this role, they get certain permissions. And the permissions that you give are, lots of times resource permissions. Like you are allowed to do this. So for us, what we'll do is we'll create a role, we'll attach it to our EC2, and then we'll say, hey, this EC2, because you have this role, you are allowed to access our container registry. You may think we should automatically get that, but that's not the case, right? At AWS, by default, everything is restricted, okay, to every resource. So you have to give the permissions in order for them to be able to access it, right? Like AWS is all about security, and so they try to deny access unless you specify otherwise, okay? As an admin user, right, like we are, when we log into AWS, we are like admin users, so we get full admin access, but other kind of any resources you create, you're gonna have to specify explicitly. So let's get into that. Okay, so I'm gonna go to AWS and sign into the console, and that's so nice. And then, so we've so far used, EC2. This is the Elastic Container Registry. You may have to type it in. You can just type in ECR. It comes right up. Or you can just type in the full name. Click on it. You can see I've already created a bunch of repos, but I'll create a new one. All right. So I'll do create a repository, and then you can call this whatever. I'll call this my sample Flask app. So what you want to just notice here is this is kind of like almost like the root URL. This URL here is going to be the same for all of your repositories. And this is going to be kind of like for your specific, kind of like GitHub repository. almost equivalent. So that it's really just like GitHub, like same way you have like a username and then you have a separate repository. This is kind of the same idea. So we click create repository. You can see, right, I have these various things, but what was it? It was sample app repo. Ugh. Can I refresh? It was just called sample app. Did I just create this? April 10th. No. Anything else?
Sample Flask app?
Oh, sample Flask
Sample
app.
Flask app.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, so this sample Flask app. So yeah, so you can see that, right? Like these all have the same exact URLs and just like kind of after the slash is different. So the next thing we want to do is we want to take my image, right? So you can see I already did it. Actually, this is from an EC2. All right. So we have our web app. I'm going to, if I look into app, here's my Docker file. It's pretty simple. It just like sets my Flask env variable and then like boots up my Flask app. So what we can do is just build it. And what we're going to, and you guys kind of remember this from Docker Hub, we're going to have to tag it with the name of my repository because when I push, right, it's going to be, I'm going to have to push up to, this repo. So I can just do Docker build -t and then the name of this. If you don't want to rebuild it, it's fine. You can, I won't go into that. So Docker build -t, we'll tag it with this exact name, do the dot thing. That should work out fine. Then the next thing that we'll want to do is push this up. In order to do that, it's not so straightforward. Okay, so in order to do that, it's not so straightforward. Let me see if I have the command here. Yeah, there's the Docker build. Otherwise, I'll just type it in. All right, so this is what you have to do. So it's AWS ECR, right? AWS is my AWS console that I have access to. And then there are different like resources. So this is ECR. Now, this one that I'll use is get login password -- region. And then my region is US East 1. All right, so I'll show you what this does. If I press return here, what this is giving me back here is actually like a login token. All right, so basically I'm asking ECR for a like one-time token or like a login token basically like logging into a website, just like a user session, right? So a token that allows me to like log in to this ECR, and then from there we can access it. So it's kind of like this multi-step process. So really what you want to do is take this output that we get, this token. You never have to look at it. You just pipe it in. Normally the way you'll run this is you'll pipe it in, say get the login password, it'll give you back that token, and then you pipe it into Docker login -- username AWS -- password standard in. So that will be the login token. This password standard in will be the output of this, will be the return value of this they're passing through. And then we want my account ID. We want basically the whole repository. You don't want the thing after the slash. You're just saying like log into my like service, right? Let me see if that works. Oh no, I broke it. Ugh. Let me see what I did wrong. Get login password user East 1. Oh, maybe it's password standard in? Yeah, sorry about that. This is one word. Obviously the reading tells you how to do this. Okay, so there we go. Login succeeded. Okay, logging in with your password grants to your terminal. Complete access to your account. Blah, blah. All right, so now basically my Docker client, like Docker, can connect to ECR. And the next thing we can do is just like Docker push this thing. I think that's it. And basically we're going to push the image, if you do docker image ls, remember we tagged something with that image, this guy, all right? And now we're just going to push this guy up to the same repository name. Okay. Okay, cool. We are doing it. Good for us. Cool. So now we can look at sample Flask app, and there it is. All right, and it's up there. Okay, so what's next? So what we did, right, we built our image, we created an ECR, we pushed some, an image up to the ECR. We were able to, even to just do this, we had to have admin access here, right? We had to have AWS admin access, which gave us access to ECR. The main thing it gave us access to was that command of getting the login password, right? Getting that token, right? Like you need permission. Like we can't just give this token out to anyone. We need to have permission to get the token. All right. So what's the next thing? So we pushed it. The next thing is let's see if we can actually pull this from an EC2 machine. So I'm going to go to EC2. We're going to create it. I already have an instance running because I was playing around with this. Let's click launch instance. Let's call this my Flask app. It can be called anything. Use Amazon Linux. Instance type micro. Set my key pair as this example one, like always. Allow SSH access from anywhere, right? So we're creating security group. And then I think we're good. Cool. All right, so this is my EC2 instance that we just created. If we can log in to this, I'll kind of show you something in a second. Like I said, kind of if you think about where we are, we've created this ECR, we've created this EC2, but we have not at this point like specified any permissions that allow my EC2 to access my ECR, right? So right now, like when I try to access from my terminal, we're good. We can access ECR. Why? Because we have those AWS keys, right, in the .aws folder, right, that has my credentials, and these give me admin access. But that is not the case on my EC2. All right, these guys does not have the credentials. So let's try to see that. We can refresh, click connect, and then SSH in here, .ssh, say yes. And now if we do AWS, that will work. All right, so we have AWS installed. But if we try that command about, what's that? About this guy, like to get the login password, this is not going to work. Okay? Unable to, so look at this, unable to locate credentials. You can configure credentials by running AWS configure. So so my EC2 instance does not have access. Excuse me. So what do we need to do? Basically, like we have to go through these steps. We're going to have to create a role, attach, say that we have ECR access to this role, and then tag my EC2 instance with the same role. Okay, so that's what we can do next. So the way that you do this is luckily the reading walks you through it, otherwise no one would remember. It's honestly easier, I think it's more intuitive with Terraform, which is what we'll eventually move into. All right, so you can go to security, modify IAM role, and now here, what you can do is basically you can choose an existing role if you have one that makes sense, but really what you'll do is create a new one. So all I did was I just clicked on this little thing to create a new IAM role. Again, the reading walks you through it. And now you can search, we'll just create a new role. We'll say EC2 to ECR, we'll call it read role. So this will be like a key card that allows my EC2 instance the ability to read from my ECR resource. Click on create role. The name could be anything, right? And then this does help specifying that the use case is EC2. And this says, allows EC2 instances to call AWS services. All right, so that's what we care about. Click next. And now we need to specify what access we want to give. So far what we've done is we've created a role, but we need to create a policy, right, that says, hey, if you hold this key card, you can access the ECR repository. So that's what we can do here. It's modify IAM role, create, wait, sorry, it's not that one, it's this one. Okay, so now I can just look for like container. You can see there's full repository access. We can do, what if there's read? ECR. For the word read. This is probably it. Provides read-only access to Amazon EC2 container registry. This looks right to me. Yeah, this is correct. The reading tells you exactly what to do, but I can kind of I can explain this if you want, but we will be going through this again. Why do we give the name of the ECR repo in Docker build and in Docker push? It doesn't seem to do much in Docker build. Yeah, so Scobie, like, why does the name of the ECR repo, why do we need to do that here? Like when we Docker build it? I'm guessing, like, the reason why I do it is because I want to tag it with this name. That way when I do Docker push, I'm by default pushing to this same repository name. There probably is a way to do that. Like, I just don't know. But there probably is a way to push up to this repository without, you could probably just specify, like, push this image to this separate repository. But here, if I have it aligned, I don't have to worry about that. I can just, as long as I tag this with the repo name I want to push to, I can just do Docker push, and I'm good.
So it really won't work. The process we're doing here won't work unless you do tag it this way.
Yeah, like this process where I'm just doing Docker push and it automatically is pushing to this repo. Okay. Yeah.
Hey Jeff, regarding this question, then why did we need to log in to the ECR then if we anyways have to tag it with this URL?
Yeah, just because, anyone could, like, you could tag an image with this URL, right? But I don't want to give you necessarily access to my ECR, right? To like push images up there or override an image. So this is not what gives you permission to do it, right? When you try to push, what's going to happen is it's going to do you need to do the login, right? It needs to get a login token. So basically you can think of it as if you imagine this is like my laptop, we need to ask ECR for a login token, and then when I get the login token, then I can access ECR. So it's basically like I said, kind of like signing into a website. You first need to sign in to Facebook or whatever before you can then operate on your account, right? Even if you have, why am I able to get the login token here? Well, because you've stored your username and password in the, .aws folder right here, right? You've stored it. So then, when you say get a login token, it's going to see your credentials, see that you are an admin user and you have permission to get that login token from ECR. That login token now will be passed into your Docker client, and now your Docker client with that login token can push or pull from ECR.
Yes, understood this, but my bone of contention is if we already logged into ECR, then that totally makes sense that we definitely need the credentials and the authorization to push something to ECR. But after we are done logging in, I don't understand the use of tagging then because we already opened a gateway to ECR now. Now we know for a fact that if we use Docker, any subsequent Docker push, that is anyways getting pushed to this ECR. I'm still not following that. Like from a single EC2 instance, we can't log in into two hubs. Like you mentioned, this is also sort of a hub. We are not at a time able to log into two hubs anyways.
Yeah.
So when the moment we log in into one hub, what I understand is any operation we do to do with Docker is then based on that hub, which we log
Yeah,
in into.
I mean, there's a couple of things. One is, this login token's not is just temporary, and two, I mean, I guess it's just not smart enough, or at least I just don't think it's set up that feature where like just because you're logged in, it knows that you want to push directly to this repository, especially at this URL. Like it just doesn't. When you do Docker push, you can try to push wherever you want. You're basically making like a post request to to post your image to wherever you want. And then right there's always that gatekeeper saying like, are you allowed to did you give me the credentials to be able to do that, right? So it's like you're basically making a post request with the credentials, and you get those credentials by doing the login, and the login, gives you the credential, or you ask for the credentials from ECR. You pay it with, then you log in with those credentials with Docker, and then you use those credentials in your post request to push the image up to the repository. Yeah. Cool. If you're getting this much, like that's really good. Like if you guys are following 80% of this, that's really nice. Like I said, we're going to be doing this a lot. The main thing is because I find these permissions to be kind of confusing. Okay, so we have created a role, and we are about to attach what's called like a policy to the role. One thing that's annoying is like AWS like changes the names. Like here they're saying add permissions, but really a permission is a policy. Like that's how we should think of it. So this is a policy, and you can see if you want to see the details of it. Like you can see, I was double checking. What I'm looking at is I'm seeing these actions here, and basically what I'm looking to see is look at this one, get authorization token. Guess what that is? That's the token that we were just talking about, right? Get the download URL for layer, right? If I want to pull down this image, I need the download URL for layer. I forget which other ones. I think there's one, batch layer, check availability. I think there's another one that you need. So these are, I think, the three main ones, and then probably this batch get image. The other one are like, you can list all your repository, like there's these other things, but you can pull down a specified image. Like the key ones are these guys. Get the authorization token, make sure it's available, get the download URL, get the image. I'm pretty sure those are the main ones. All right, but this is generated for you for now. We'll write it ourselves later, like in an hour. Okay, so let's do this next. Now we're creating the role, right? The role again is this guy. So we've started to create a role. We haven't given it a name yet. We have attached the policy, right? It's giving ourselves ECR access essentially to this role, and then we're going to need to attach the role to my EC2. So create the role. Again, I thought I called this something. EC2, allow EC2 instances. Okay, fine. EC2 to ECR role. I'll call it read role. And then I'll click create role. All right, so I've created this role. Now remember, the way I got here in the first place was because I went to my instance, and then in instance, I'll just show you, you can go to the instance and then go to actions, security, modify IAM role, and that's what brought me over here. And then we did create new role, and then we went through that workflow to create a new role and attach that ECR read permission to it. So the next thing now is you can like refresh this list of the available roles, right? So this way the role we just created will be there, and then I forget what I called it, something about read, EC2 to ECR read role. So now we can do update IAM role, And it was this guy, I think, the Flask app. Yeah, so let's connect to this. Well, we're already connected, aren't we? Yeah, we are SSH'd in. So now let's see this. If I can do this. Ah, damn it, you bastard. Okay, an error occurred when calling get authorization token. The user... Oh, but this is close. Wait, isn't this close? The user 0867 assume role EC2 to ECR read. So notice we are associated with this role. And it says is not authorized to perform ECR get authorization token, right? That's what we need for the token because no identity-based policy allows the ECR get authorization token action. No identity-based policy. I thought I just did. Let's take a look. All right. So we'll go here, my Flask app. We'll look at this role. Here are, oh, wait, there's no policies. That's weird. I must have not, I don't know what I did. I must have somehow attached policies to somebody else. Let's just click attach policies. We'll just do this real fast again. So we'll do container, and then we'll do container ECR. Sorry. ECR. Okay. Oh, maybe someone's telling me. So this, let's review that in a second. So ECR registry read only. I think this is right. Yeah, it just didn't have any. And then we could see the JSON, which is what I care about, the get authorization token. And then what it was telling me here was we don't have this. So this should provide me, by attaching this policy, this should attach it to me. So I guess somehow I just did not attach the policy. Let's see. Okay, so here's the policy. Maybe I just didn't select it. I think that might be it. I think I just didn't click the checkbox. So that would be this container registry. I'm gonna double check. So again, I'm looking for this guy. So this looks right. So now I'm gonna click the check. You all saw it. And let's click add permissions. And let's refresh. So now we have this Amazon EC2 add permissions. Let's take a look at my, and you can kind of see this is on this EC2 to ECR read role. So now and here it is, ECR to EC2 read role. And then if we go back to my instance, we can see, yeah, it's right here, that my instance is attached to this role, and the role is attached to this policy, and the policy includes a statement that has an action that gives me access to the get authorization token. And so now, hopefully this works. And it does. Sweet. All right, so now we can just, it's an easy game from here, I hope. So we should be able to now, we're going to need to install Docker. So sudo yum install docker-y. Okay. This will just keep going. Sudo system ctl start docker. That doesn't look right, does it? Sudo system ctl start docker. So Docker should be starting. And then we can do the same command from before, and now instead we'll do, this is a gotcha. You have to type sudo here. Pipe sudo, right? Sudo, because we're about to do sudo docker login dash username AWS dash password stdin. And now here we want the ECR. I'll just get it real fast. I just need that ECR URL. So it's this guy. Remember everything except for the slash. So you're logging in like to your hub, basically. All right. Login succeeded. That's sweet. And now we can do docker pull sample flask app. Remember, we have to just type sudo. All right, and that's it. Okay. So the idea is like this EC2 instance has a user associated with it, right? You can even see, you can use the AWS console to find that user. I just forget the command. So the EC2 user, this EC2, right? We're in an EC2. Let's do this again. We're in an EC2. That EC2, we attached a user to it, and you can see that if you go. Let me refresh. There it is. You can see that like right here. Okay. So we attached a role to my EC2, and that role has certain permissions, really what I like to call policies. And this policy, right, the policy that we gave, allows me the ability to download a repo. All right. Let me see what questions there are. I know that. Cool. So there's a question with a bullet on it. Okay, so the steps are: create a role, search the EC2 to get roles that allow access to ECR. So I wouldn't, that's one correction. I would say the steps are step 1, create a role. Then you get taken to permissions, which is really policies. Okay? And you want to search the policies that allow for ECR read access. Okay? Remember, these policies have various, like, what's called like actions, and those actions include like the ECR token, like get the token, get the URL, etc. That's really what you want. But in order to do that, we look for that ECR read access. Then what's step 3? Attach the role to the EC2. Okay? Then we're good, right? Then we can log in, ask to get that token and use that to log or Docker in and pull down the image. Okay, so whenever you create, and the way that we got there, the way we kind of kicked this thing off was we clicked on our EC2, we clicked on actions, security, modify IAM role, then we just went through this workflow, create a new role, right? And this, and we can kind of create a new one if we want, or you could use an existing one. I say this use case is EC2. I click next. I now have to add permissions. So this doesn't really have to do with the EC2. It's just like you're creating a role, you give that role certain permissions. Otherwise, it's pointless. Like this role is a key card. It should open some doors. So then you look for a container, and I just press Command F and look for the word read. This looks good, or it provides read-only access. I like clicking this plus sign to make sense, to make sure. This looks good. Click the checkbox, click next. Give this thing EC2 to ECR for real, and then don't use that. And then click the role. And now what do we need to do? Now that we've created the role, we need to attach the role, right? Create the role, add permissions, attach the role to the EC2. So to do that, we go back here, we'll refresh, we'll, use the one we just created, something about for real, and then update, okay? And once you do that, that role should be attached. Then you can try to log in, right? And you saw what happened, if you don't have the role, right? Like we can maybe like delete it or something. If you don't have the role, it will give you that error. I wonder if I can delete it. No IAM role. Detach. Right? Then you could debug it on your own, right? because you can see if you do this AWS ECR thing, like give me the token, this is actually a pretty nice error message. Run AWS, not that one's not so great. Run AWS configure. The other one we got was, hey, I don't have that action. We don't have it right now, but it said something like, we don't have that action that gives me token access. So that should be an issue that my policy, my user doesn't have that policy associated with it. Okay, here I don't even have a user, and then previously we saw we had a user, but we did not have that policy that allows me that token that allows me to log in. Okay. Can all this be done through Terraform? Yes, we will be doing all this through Terraform. Right, and this same diagram applies. Like, this diagram. This is what we'll be doing through Terraform. Create an EC2 instance, create a role, create policies, right? Give myself ECR access, attach the role, attach the policy to the role, attach the role to the EC2. There's even something called, and we'll get into this, a trust policy that we'll need to create. Yeah, neuropathy.
So what's the benefit using this AEC like over pulling image from like Docker Hub?
Oh, I see. Why use ECR instead of just Docker Hub? The main reason is the ability to have these kind of like fine-grained permissions where you can kind of see exactly who we're giving access to. You can do that programmatically, right? Like we can do this in Terraform in a little bit, which is also very nice. And then so we can do the main reason is we can be very fine-grained, meaning we can give this EC2 access to it by attaching the role, but not another EC2 instance access to it. Even when if you go further in this, you can get fancier and you can say like, hey, automatically pull down this EC2, this container into an EC2, boot it up, and then when it's done, like let's say you're scraping a website with this thing, when you're done scraping, shut down the container, shut down even the EC2. Like that's very cool. That service is called ECS, Elastic Container Service, if anyone, wants to look at it for whatever. But yeah, you can go even further with this, which is really cool. And we will probably do something similar. We will be doing some more complicated stuff with this service. All right, cool. Okay, so I will let you start working